Greetings and happy Friday. So excited to be here. And thank you all for joining us this morning, this Friday, Father's Day, I would say Eve. Wanted to really do a very special Utopia talk on a topic that is near and dear to me, and that is the impact of fatherhood on well-being. I want to thank you all for joining us for today's topic. And also, before we dive in, I want to invite you to elevate your utopia. So grab your latte, grab your tea, grab your journal. You might have some reflection. Look, what do you have? A Cookie Monster.
This is my casual Friday mug.
No, I love Cookie Monster. I had a Cookie Monster birthday cake when I was a little girl. Not recently.
Don't we all? Yeah.
We can see that you're in true fatherhood fashion today with the Cookie Monster.
Totally.
And even if you want to light a candle, it's all about creating an experience and a holistic wellness experience. So just to introduce myself for those that may not know me and may be joining for the very first time, I am Naya Powell, founder and CEO of Utopia Global Wellness. We provide globally relevant wellness, elevating workplace culture, mental health, and inclusion. And we do that with our digital wellness platform and subscription that offers 24/7 live and on-demand digital wellness classes, coaching, workshops, and retreats. And Clarence has been a member of the platform, has brought us into his team, and we're going to get to know these two amazing fathers. And Clarence, okay. I think somebody's sharing, and sharing is caring. So we appreciate
that must have been Cookie Monster.
Beautiful. So also want to share that I am a best-selling author of 30 Days to Utopia Living. So if you want to continue the conversation after this live around your coaching and well-being, check it out on Amazon. And we've had the privilege of partnering with numerous brands, including Red Hat, which is, I know Clarence from the Red Hat family, IBM, Microsoft, NFL, Duke University, and we have a new partnership with United Healthcare. I also know Rain from the startup and founder community. And so I'm just excited that you all are here. So why don't I just take a pause and let the two of you introduce yourselves. So Clarence, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you. How many children do you have? What you do professionally? And what you like to do to unwind as a father, busy father.
All right, thank you. What a nice way to kick it off. So I'm Clarence Clayton. I like the way, Naya, that you labeled it the ad, father in chief. I'm with that. That sounds good to me. And certainly being a father is a major source of pride and joy for me. I have two children, two daughters, 14 and 12. I'm in the thick of it right now. And that's, makes life a little bit interesting. So certainly there's a lot going on there with homework and getting them to, different activities that they're involved in. On top of an already, busy plate as a professional, I am a manager at Red Hat. I lead our global privacy team and in charge of our privacy compliance initiatives all over the world. And beyond that, a husband, a son, a friend, and I try to carve out a little bit of time, for me as well. What do I do to, kind of relax as a dad? Quality time with them, certainly is important and just trying to be really present with them. And then, beyond that, I like my social media, pop culture, following, political, news and stuff like that. That's sort of some of how I can find some of my zen.
Love it. So you're a girl dad, double girl dad.
Twice. Yeah. Not necessarily how I planned it, but that is how it worked out. And I wouldn't trade them for anything. So it's all good.
So yeah, so dads are super important for girls as they are for young men. And so trust me, I know it's hard work. Girls are a lot, but it's all going to pay off. Rain said yes, so you know about that. So Rain, go ahead and share with the people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, real quick, Clarence, how old were your girls again? 6 and 12?
14 and 12.
14 and 12. I don't know where I got 6, but listen, I think it's so funny because when I introduce or talk about myself with my kids, I say that I'm in the thick of it. So it apparently seems that being in the thick of it doth not change.
It never ends.
Right. It's just a new thing. You're in a new brush,
That's
trying to find your way through. So yeah, I have a lot to look forward to. And I have 2 kids that are 5 and 2. So, or one's about to be 2, a boy and a girl. The boy is the youngest. And listen, I don't know. They're both hard and challenging in their own ways, and they're both fulfilling in their own ways. But my son came along. Oh, he about killed us. Like usually that you hear that a lot, where like the first one's kind of easy, they lure you into it, and then you get hit with the second one. But it's like so fulfilling and so challenging. But I love it. I've come one of those people that kind of always wanted to be a dad and have a family. I come from a very small family. My wife has a very large family. I've always been envious of people like that. And I probably lost that desire for a little while, like in my bachelor days, but like just momentarily in terms of a lifespan, a couple of years. So it's really, really fulfilling for me. And it's really important that I show up fully as much as I can every day. I'm also very busy. My background is I'm a filmmaker and a writer, an entrepreneur, and very recently a startup founder, Naya. So yeah, I mean, we're slammed, but I'm passionate and fulfilled by everything that I do. And that includes fatherhood. So like, I'll deal with it, right? Like I will deal with the lack of sleep, because for me, I will do what I have to do to make sure that weekend trip to the river or the beach or whatever happens. And just make sure that, like I think we'll talk about today, that I'm able to carve out that time for my resets, my well-being, because if not, we know that's the quickest path to burnout. And so we got to be cautious of that. But like, I work hard and I'm passionate in anything I do. And that 100% includes parenthood and fatherhood.
So this is just beautiful, because we are so accustomed to hearing these conversations from women, right? Talking about how the children are exhausting and how motherhood is the hardest thing you'll ever do. And so it's really refreshing, honestly, to hear, even though like I'm super close to my dad, I've never really heard my dad kind of articulate like how tough it is or taxing it is to be a dad. And he's like a super present dad. And so it's, I think, wonderful to give space for your voices as dads, especially as present dads. And so, I love to share data in stats, because I think it's important, right? So there are 18.4 million children that are growing up without present fathers. So according to the Census Bureau, that is 1 in 4 live without a biological, step, or adoptive dad in their home. And I believe that, even if you weren't able to have your biological dad present, fatherhood can show up in a lot of different forms. It might be a grandfather, it might be an uncle, it might be a big brother, it might be, someone in your community. So if you have some form of fatherhood, that's a blessing too. And so, as you talk about, Rain, I have to say, one of the things that puts you're on the radar, because we've been having lots of conversations lately.
Yeah.
But when I saw your cute little post of your son, who is how old exactly?
He's not even 2 yet. He'll be 2 in July.
So this little man, he is already a gentleman, and he's not even 2. Gentlemen just really bless my heart. So he's pushing with his little friend. She's in her little like toddler car. He's opening her door. He's helping to push her along. And so it's like he's already like showing up as like a little man. And
I love that so much. I mean, he's very close with his mother. He's one of those kids that's very challenging, but he'll just flash that little smile at you, and you're just like, you just melt. And we were at a graduation party for my daughter's preschool, so she's going to kindergarten soon. And there was a girl. We have a little like toy Jeep at home, so he was kind of used to it. And she was struggling with it, but he like opened the door, put her in there, hit the start button for her, and she still couldn't figure out how to drive it. And then my man goes to the back, to the bumper, gets down like he's on a offensive lineman, and it just starts pushing it for her. So she's acting like she's driving, and he's the engine behind it. I'm like, go ahead. I took the video of it and I sent it immediately to my wife, to his mother. And I was proud of that moment, because we protect women around here.
Yeah, I love it. And it's so funny, right? Because when you say he's a little challenging, I'm like, he just looks like the little angel child, which we know there's really no such thing. Right?
No, everybody else is different with parents, but like all the teachers love them, right? But they behave so differently in the house.
Absolutely. It was like, yeah. And I've had
Oh,
the privilege of knowing Clarence now for, gosh, what has it been, like 6 years or
like
something like
six,
that?
7 years. Yeah. Yeah.
6 or 7 years. So I had the privilege of knowing his whole beautiful family, his beautiful wife, Monique, his gorgeous girls. And so he has 2 of them. And so I know girls are not easy. And it's so
Oh,
funny. I
no.
don't have daughters yet. I still look forward to motherhood, but I have nieces. And obviously, I love my nieces to pieces, right? Love them. And so, I spend a lot of time with them and try to do fun activities with them. But even I was taken aback when, I realized like, oh, wow, that's sweet, fun, go with the flow, let's do it. Whole attitude has shifted. What happened? so you have the double dose of that, Clarence.
I do. And they grow up. It sometimes it seems gradual, but it can be like a quick shift. Like, I can look at pictures, you have memories that show up on your phone and it's like, oh, we want to bake chocolate chip cookies and do all of these little cutesy things. And now it's all about, I want my hair a certain way, or I want a certain outfit, or I want, my room a complete, makeover. And it's just kind of like, when did all of that happen? When did all these opinions happen? We used to just be able to dress you all how we wanted to. We just put whatever in front of you. We just did whatever, and you all just went with it. And then you all became little mini adults with a lot of opinions and a lot of attitude. And you kind of have to balance that, because I do want my girls to be assertive and be able to, say what's on their mind and all of that, but with, the appropriate boundaries and respect in place, that, what mom and dad say goes. And, you all have, got to balance that. There are things that my mom and dad said to me and told me or made me do that I didn't always like. But look, that's just life. And you got to learn that as well. So it's sort of balancing that, letting them come into their own with understanding the boundaries of the relationship dynamics between the parents and the kids.
Absolutely. When both of you speak, it brings up so much for me. I want to say one, thank you to those that have joined. I see there are a few that have joined us. Let us know where you're joining us from in the comments. Weigh into the conversation, share your points of view. And also ask any questions that you might have. So we want this to be an engaged conversation, right? So I like to say that fathers are often overlooked heroes. And we know that the presence of an engaged father is significant in our lives, not only from our emotional well-being, but our mental well-being, but even the overall life well lived, what we would consider success. And success looks different to a lot of different people. But one of the things I think we can all agree upon is what's not successful is dropping out of school, ending up in prison, and with mental health challenges or unemployed. So just to share some stats with you, when fathers are involved, their children are 2 times more likely to go to college, 80% less likely to spend time in jail, 75% less likely to experience teen pregnancy. Becoming an engaged dad has benefits for fathers too. So fathers that are engaged tend to set goals, higher levels of goals, and achieve those goals and achieve greater success, have healthier habits, and become more important. And also their self-esteem increases as dads see their value. So I would like to even just kind of ask both of you, once you became a father, did that shift your mindset in terms of how you flow through life, your level of responsibility? Being a husband is a huge responsibility, but once you produce life, that's an elevated level. So how did fatherhood impact or affect you?
I'll go first. I guess mine are older, but doesn't make, I think it still transforms you, even at the moment. And I remember when my older daughter was born, this sort of like sense of purpose, and a greater level of meaning and needing to exist and needing to, be successful. Just from looking at her, it's like, here's this life, like you said, that is completely dependent on, me and her mother or more her caregivers to live, to thrive. And so it was just like in the beginning, it's like everything that I was doing, I got a kid, I got a daughter, I got to provide, I got to make sure that I do everything that I can to make sure that she has everything she needs and everything she wants to, because, especially with the first, you just want to, give them the world, although I want to give both of them the world. And so I remember even bringing it into kind of like a corporate sense. There were times where I'd get frustrated about something at work before becoming a father. And I noticed my response would be different. Not necessarily that how I would have handled it before wouldn't have been professional, but I remember at one of my jobs, I had a picture of my kids, my family right there above my desk. And so there were difficult moments. I'd look up at that picture and I'd say, they're why you're here. And so sort of, focus on that. And it sort of would help me to de-escalate the situation and see, hey, how can I figure this thing out? And how can I continue to press forward and push through? So, absolutely, transformative on numerous levels in just terms of the type of man and person that I want to be.
I love that. Rain?
I would say that, yes, it definitely changed me immediately in a lot of ways. But as we're talking, what's emerging in my mind is the gradual process for me that it took to get there. And what I mean by that is, like, we never stop learning, right? We never stop becoming more skilled and growing. Ideally, that should be the goal, at least, right? And for me, that's never been more present and evident than in parenthood, because in a lot of ways, I didn't change my life that much with the first one. Now, I've kind of already mentioned my daughter was very easy. And at that time, if you have a 2-parent household, you still outnumber them, right? And so we worked into a very easy system. She slept through the night very early. She was potty trained very early. She started dressing herself at like 2 or 3, legit, and put it together well. Nuts. So me as like an entrepreneur, kind of self-employed hustler type, artist, very driven on my own path, right? And in some ways not selfish, but self-centered in terms of like have always been about like what I'm trying to achieve, what I'm trying to do. It was easy to kind of just stay in those change a little bit of my day-to-day here and there, but she was an easy kid. Now, when you have 2, it's not, and a lot of people say this, like having 2 is more like 3, like even though it's 2 versus 2, you know what I'm saying? But like it is, it's very clear you are a family unit, and it is no longer that. When it was both of us, we could just say, hey, can you get her? Cool, I'm gonna go do this. But with 2, you cannot do that anymore. So we have to operate as a quadrant, right? As a team of 4. And that's when I had the most lessons learned, or the deepest lessons learned. And I will also say, I got to say, I totally agree. And I know those stats to be true about a father being in the house. It's also, and we're talking about father showing up. It's also very easy as a father to overlook things that you should be doing to help your wife or your partner or the mother, because the system is still set up for mothers to kind of lead, to be like the team leader, or maybe it's inherent, right? Maybe it's an innate quality that mothers have to just, kind of take over in that. And it's very easy for even good fathers, even present fathers, to just kind of like slip into this path, because a mother typically, obviously I'm generalizing, will like do what has to be done. And so if she's over there getting the kids ready, I'm like, okay, well, I'll have a coffee. Like she's got it. Well, that's also a recipe for burnout, right? So you got to be really conscious of, am I being proactive? Not just waiting to be, a lot of times, and I'll speak for myself, but I've seen this with other men, other fathers, will kind of wait to be, hey, what do you need? What can I help you with? This was a big switch for me when it was like, she's not a project manager, right? And that was like, oh, I think I'm being helpful because I'm like, I'm here, what you need. And let's be honest, because when my mom sees it, she's like, oh my God, you're such a good dad, because generationally, like, it has changed. Our fathers weren't present at all back, 1 to 2 generations ago. So we are doing great. But again, does that mean we can't do better? Of course not. And we should always strive for that. So that was a huge lesson for me, is like, we can't, I can't let it just slide onto her, because she'll take it, because she's a mother. She's going to like take after her babies or take care of her babies. And so now it's changed the way we move as a family unit, because we have 4 people's schedules to consider, 4 people's well-being to consider, and 4 people's goals to consider. My daughter likes playing soccer. I have a job. I also like playing soccer. Like we're all in the mix now. So that was where I really had to make sacrifices, compromises, and prioritize what matters most.
That's so good. You kind of led us into the next question, which is, what does fatherhood mean to you? And so since you kind of started, you might have some more thoughts around that. So I want to give you a chance to unpack that even more, but you gave us a lot of what it means to you. I also want to ask you about your examples of fatherhood. Was your father present, your biological father present, or others that kind of stepped in that role?
That's a good question for me personally, and definitely applies to and influences my perspective on fatherhood. So I grew up in an alcoholic, abusive household. My dad was an alcoholic, God rest his soul. He quit drinking, and we repaired our relationship. So I have a positive memories mostly, or that's what I take with me. When I think of my dad now, I have to go back to think about the darker version of him, right? When he was in that addictive state. But I say that to say, yes, he was present. We probably didn't want him to be present that often. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he was, there was verbal abuse, there was physical abuse. Weirdly, he was always able to say, like, I love you. And like when he would be drunk or sober. But my brother, who was 7 years older than me, 6, 7 years older than me, definitely kind of took that fatherhood role in a lot of ways, teaching me, how to move in the world, teaching me how to be a man, teaching me anything, protecting me physically sometimes. And so at the most base level, it was like, I am never going to be that, right? I am not going to bring that. And listen, I come from a long line of addicts, right? So I'm very hyper aware of where I am on that spectrum and how to address that, because that's extremely important to me. I've already said that family was important to me to have kids. I will never bring that into it. But furthermore, I want to go above and beyond just like not being, an alcoholic. I want to be there for them, for their games, for their recitals, for their day-to-day, for their heartbreaks, like just for any of that stuff that they need. And I genuinely love, like, what does fatherhood mean to me? Like, I genuinely love spending time with my kids. I will say this, and I'm not trying to drag any of my friends. Of course, I would not name anybody, but I've heard more than once from more than a couple of people, like, oh, I've got the kids alone this weekend, and it's tough when you're having to handle them alone. But a lot of dads, they get like completely thrown off by that. Yeah. My wife just went to London for like 9 days, and I had left the weekend before to take them. Like, I love like my time alone with my kids. Do I work harder? Absolutely. Do I have to make compromises with my work and other things? Of course. Yeah. But I cherish those moments. I genuinely, I'm not trying to sound like a saint, but I just love those moments where I see a lot of fathers dread those moments. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get less sleep and work harder, but what, am I not going to do it? Like, of course I'm going to do it. I love being there and being a part of my kids' life. I coach my kids' like soccer team, like I just love being involved. I truly love it. And I'll work to make sure that I'm as good as I can be. And that's a work that happens every single day.
And I just want to, so I don't lose it before Clarence chimes in here, I just want to applaud you, because I think we learn what we want and we can learn what we don't want in life. From our family, right? Like, so just because there are certain things in our family, we all have some things in our family that maybe we don't repeat and we shouldn't repeat, right? We do not have to live out the generational curses. We can decide, just like you said, Rain, like, yeah, that wasn't pleasant for me. So I want us to actually even think about that. All the things that we've experienced through life and childhood, especially since we're talking about family. If there are things that weren't pleasant for you as a child, let's make an intentional decision to work hard, because it's not always as easy done as said, but let's make an intentional decision to reroute that and make ourselves, the leaders of new legacy in our family.
I love that.
Rich legacy. Well, wealth, true wealth is health and healing, and the core of healthy is the word heal. So we need healing in our families, and if we have healing in our families, we have healing in our communities. And so the presence of a father, we can see, impacts whether people are end up incarcerated or not, on drugs or not, finishing school or not, in poverty or not. The presence of fatherhood is so important. And I just have to say, as a daughter in chief, my father has shaped the person I am in so many ways. So my love for wellness comes from my father, who ran marathons and was always reading labels and talking about the impact of what we put into our bodies, and reading these books before we had Whole Foods. And I could tell you stories that are like comical now, but peanut butter, healthy peanut butter wasn't good then. And the bread wasn't soft when it was healthy. So I would be like, I don't want this. Saying I need to borrow lunch money at school. And they're like, but you have a lunch. And I'm like, but it's nasty. But it was healthy, right? My father was trying to make us healthy. So it's funny now, but those influences influence my passion for health and wellness.
Yep.
His global travel as an entrepreneur and businessman shaped my mindset as a global citizen. So it's all of these things. And my father making sure that, I remember him telling me when I worked in our family business for years out of college, don't be just a pretty face. So meaning to add value to the rooms that you enter, have a voice, have a perspective, be intelligent, just don't rely on certain things. So all of those things, I just want to say, shout out to you. And I've seen so many men decide to be amazing dads based on not even having it. And I think that is harder because you didn't have the example to see. So I just had to give you that shout out.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I love that thing you said, the leaders of new legacies, because we can't control what happened before us, and certainly our kids can't, but we can control what we do moving forward. And then it trickles down to the next generations. It really does. So I think that was really powerful. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Would love to hear from you, Clarence.
Okay, let's see. So I'll go back like both questions. So as far as, my father's presence in my life, I grew up in the house with my mom and dad. So he was there. My dad and I were very different. He passed away almost 7 years ago. We were very, very different. He was and there's nothing wrong with this. I use this term to describe it, but sometimes people put a negative connotation on it. He's a country boy. We grew up in rural Eastern North Carolina. And he loved animals and hunting, and, he had his chickens and his turkeys, and they weren't like for livestock. They were his pets. And so,
Clarence, where are you from?
I'm from Lake Gaston up on Virginia border.
Oh, yeah. You're northeast. I'm from Little Washington. So as soon as you said Eastern North Carolina, I was like, hold on. Sorry.
Oh yeah. So we were very different. And I'm not into those, things, although I grew up around it. So I have some, affinity for it just, because of proximity to it. And, we were talking about like the generational differences. My dad was from a different era that wasn't very communicative about emotions or about love and about, being, proud. Not that he didn't deeply feel those things, because, I know that, he was, and, my mom would share, things with me, how he would brag to his friends about things that I might be doing or how successful I was, even if it wasn't something that he could, really communicate to me. So, I'm glad to, have had, the balance of, my mom in that regard, who, kind of poured into me in those ways that I also think are important. And the other thing I want to say about my dad really quickly is that when it came to being a grandfather, when my children came, he was a different person. They got a different version of him than I did, which was beautiful for me, right? I wanted that. I wanted them to have a good relationship with him. He cherished his relationship with them when they go to visit for the weekends, when he'd take them to the store and buy them strawberries and potato chips and take them on walks to look at the animals and all of that. So, he was a very, very, present and loving grandfather, to the extent that he could be. And my girls remember him fondly because of that. And that, kind of, it touches me to feel like, things ended, so to speak, in a way where we were in a good place and they have really fond memories of him as well. On the question of what does, fatherhood mean to me? I look at it like that whole jack of all trades, do all duties as assigned, whether that is helping with the homework, drop-offs and pickups at school, going to, parent-teacher conferences. I remember this was years ago before I even started working at Red Hat. I was on a business trip in Minnesota, and my daughter was having International Day at her daycare. And literally, I flew back from Minnesota for her to walk across the stage with some maracas and say, my name is Amaya and I'm representing Cuba. Literally, I'm like, that's it. But I'm like, I'm going to be back here. Like, I might have to go back to Minnesota. But it's those moments that, I remember, and she remembers that regardless of how.
Uh-oh. I think he froze a little bit. All right, so we'll give it a second and see if he unfreezes and joins us back.
Okay. How about
okay, you're back. Yeah.
All right. Yes, I'm not sure where we left off, but what I was saying is, having a very demanding, career, but I still try to be, fully present, for the there. Now to the question about sacrifice. What does that sometimes mean? Yep. Sometimes that means 12:30, 1 a.m., get them what they need. And then I kind of have to, pay for it a little bit on the back end. But this is the most important job that I have. And I'm going to, make sure that I, excel to the best of my ability at that.
And I know you do. I mean, so I've, in terms of Clarence and I worked very closely together while I was at Red Hat. I was there for 3 years. We definitely were leaders in an ERG together called Build, Blacks United in Leadership and Diversity. And so we were in the trenches together. So I know when he's committed to something, he's committed, and he'll be working until 11 to 12 o'clock at night or whatever it takes. And so I've seen you apply that in your family, in your fatherhood. And so that's why I also wanted to invite you to be this part of the conversation. And so it is a sacrifice. Like there are sacrifices, or some people say sacrifices and yet choices, right? So
good point.
I hear Rain, when you talk about like loving to spend time with your children and that quality time, I hear it almost as you're seeing this as a choice that I get to make versus like just a sacrifice.
Definitely. I mean, what I was thinking about it just now as you were talking is like my priority with it is like making memories. Like when we go back or go forward rather, like those are the things that are gonna really count, right? And for my kids, I can help. That's a part that I can really tangibly influence in their life. I can help implant some of those memories, right? Some of those core memories as they call them these days. So when it's like, hey, my wife's out of town for the weekend, do you want to sit here at the house and keep it easy and let them watch iPad all day? Or do you want to take them to go see grandma, go down to the river, go fishing or go out on the boat or do anything like that, right? Go camping. I take my daughter camping all the time. It's so funny. She loves that. Like, it's way more important, easier for myself, right? Always. So I always make that harder choice. And I guess kind of a lot of this conversation is about entrepreneurship. Like I kind of operate, like my baseline is kind of chaos. So like it doesn't throw me off because I'm used to that. And like I've already alluded to this when my wife was out of the country last week. It was like 9 or 10 days. And I had a lot going on in work. My daughter graduated. There was like a lot of actual responsibilities happening then. And I handled it, and it was tough. It took a lot out of me, but it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm used to having to wear, like Clarence said, multiple hats. Having multiple responsibilities, and so for me, it is about making choices, like you said. And I will always choose to make that memory versus making it easier on myself, for sure.
Yeah, I want to share one of my favorite recent memories. Well, I have a few, but one of my proudest recent memories with my dad. But you know what? It goes all the way back. And I watched your video the other day, Rain, your storytelling. So I can't wait to work with you on my storytelling. But
yeah, I'm here. I'm all yours.
You're here for it, around defining moments. So sometimes, our life just kind of takes a path and it comes back to one defining moment. So thinking about a recent experience, a couple of them, but when you talk about making memories with your children, those memories then become not only memories, but it shapes them and shapes their view of the world and even
100%.
their interests, even their pursuits in life. And
Mhm.
it also kind of it can create traditions, right? So when you talk about like what you do with your little girl, it's so funny because I feel like she was just born and just a baby. Like
Tell me about it.
talk about this little girl, like she's graduating. Isn't she 5? What is she?
5. Yeah.
So, but I think about growing up, my dad would take us, I grew up in Virginia Beach, so my dad would take us to the beach a lot. So the beach is my absolutely favorite place to be in the world is the beach. It's where I feel at peace. It's where I feel my most creative self. It's where I feel my most zen. I feel most alive. Being in the ocean is where I'll get like just a whole download of a lot of just kind of like strategic visions for my life. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I feel so replenished and I never get tired of it. I could be there for hours and hours and hours. Some people are like, oh, I can't just lay on it. Oh, I can. So I'm like, I look at how I got, and I probably should be, well, future Utopia, Caribbean location. But
There it is.
yeah, there it is. And so we used to also go fishing. So he used to take us fishing. So I love fishing as well. So fast forward about 3 years ago, right before the pandemic, I was able to, I've been doing a lot of trips to Belize. I eventually did a retreat there. And in my travel journeys, I invited my dad and my bonus mom to come hang out with me in Belize. And it was an amazing time. And so we went fishing. And, you know, Belize is the second largest barrier reef in the world. Like this, the ocean life is incredible. And then we went to this beautiful beach called Secret Beach. And so we had to drive these little golf carts on these unpaved roads, and it takes 45 minutes, probably like two miles, but it takes forever to get out there. And so but you got, it's off the grid in a way. So you have to get back before it gets dark because there's not going to be any street signs and stuff and lights and all of this. So it's so funny. I'm in the ocean. My dad and my bonus mom, they're chilling in the lounge chairs or whatever. And so they're having a conversation like, oh, it's about to get dark. We need to go. But I can get lost in the beach. So my dad says, hey, we need to go. But he had just finished telling my bonus mom, when I used to take them to the beach when they were kids, you know, they would be in the water. And when I would say it's time to go, they would always say, just a few more minutes. Now, I won't tell y'all my age, but that was a long, long time ago. I don't even remember saying just a few more minutes. But why did that whole thing replay? So I'm in the water. They're like, we need to go. Hey, it's time to go. I'm like, just a few more minutes. So I say all of that to say those moments are so precious, more than I think sometimes we realize as parents, as fathers, mothers, aunties, that, you know, they literally shape. And so there's such beautiful opportunities to shape the life and the perspective of that child. So I just wanted to call that out.
Definitely. That was beautiful. That's what life is about. Like, I love you just painted that picture. By the way, that was a great story you just told. Yeah, I love that when the pieces of the past kind of come echoing back. Like, it's so beautiful. So I'm glad y'all got to experience that. And side note, like, we went to Belize for the first time in January. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we'll have to talk about Belize. I didn't know you went. Okay, so so I wanted to even bring it to, what are some of, if you could like say, you know, one of my proudest fatherhood moments. And Clarence, I feel like you almost shared one of yours. I don't want to make that assumption, where you came back just to see your little baby girl in preschool walk across the stage. That's adorable, by the way, with her right. You remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh yeah.
What are some of you, I would say twofold, as a father and as a son, you know, one of the most meaningful moments for you, or proudest moments, however you want to spin it.
Ray, you want to go first, Emil?
Yeah. Sure, I can go. I mean, for me, as a father, like, you know, we talked about my son Bishop and him pushing the Jeep, which was kind of cute and surface level, but I have to say, and It's heavy and it's very meaningful, but like a couple years ago, or not quite a couple years ago, I lost my brother, who was the one I told you about, who basically raised me. And you know, he was Uncle Bo to my daughter, who had a very incredibly strong relationship with him, even though she was 2 and 3. I think she was 3 when he passed. And I felt very alone in that journey at times, but with her, I've been blown away. Like the emotional intelligence that has been born into this like 4-year-old. Like I've had my most emotional releases, cathartic moments with her, like us, you know, to be very honest, like holding each other, like sobbing, right? And I'm just like, I did have this moment of clarity in that really profound, sad moment of just like, am I being like comforted by a 4-year-old right now? Like, and it's just blew my mind. And it wasn't like, I mean, this is the thing, like you're either your partner, your mother does, right? And like, we were feeling that pain together. The empathy that was that existed in that moment was just profound. And I was like, this kid is so astute and so emotionally, like her EQ is through the roof. And because it wasn't just like she was there and we were hugging, like it was reciprocal. And it was this moment, and we've had a couple of them, you know, because this is a never, you know, an ever going journey. But that to me stands out as just like, man, I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. Like how deeply we shared that moment with someone who's so young. And I hate that she had to process something that tough and tragic at such a young age, but like, that's what's impressive to me. She actually understands what has happened and the gravity of the loss. And so it wasn't like a happy memory, but I'll never forget it. I'll be on my deathbed and remembering that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I just want to call out, you know, because I just asked the second part of the question, but the first part was really connected to what you shared. You know, as we talked about, fatherhood greatly impacts our well-being, our sense of self. And that's in all ways. That's mentally, that's emotionally, that's relationally. And I think we've become accustomed to seeing the lack of emotion in men. And the fact that she could see you as the fullness of you. And I think that that's something we need to also talk about, is just because some young boys and men have been programmed to not show emotions, it's not healthy, because being emotional is a part of being human. It's a part of being human. It's to have feelings, right? And to be able to feel what's going on and to be able to process. And I think, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Just like, because it does happen with men, and because a lot of times there's not like the space where we feel safe to release that, because we are, you know, often looked at, whether from our own perspective or someone else's, as being the protector and the provider, right? And needing to be on call at all times for any like tiger that may jump out of the woods that we have to protect our family from, you know. And so we often don't find ourselves in safe spaces like that. And this is what was so crazy to me, was like, she provided me, a 4-year-old, a safe space, and just held me like a kid, and she was the kid, you know. And so it was crazy, but I felt safe in that moment to show those emotions. So it was so profound and so nuanced, or so many layers to it. It's wild. But what you're saying is accurate, and I think it comes from that often we don't feel, it's not that emotions aren't there. And if they aren't expressed the right way, they can come out in negative ways. We all know this. So a big part of it is having the space where we as men, fathers, feel safe to do that, right? And in society, sometimes we don't.
Yeah. Now that's a wow sort of moment that you shared. And I also want to call out, she has seen that behavior modeled. So she learned that from you and your beautiful wife and your household. So she learned how to be nurturing and empathetic. So it's really sweet, though, that she knew how to do that for you, because most kids blew
my mind.
Yeah. Awesome. So Clarence, would love to hear your perspective on this.
Sure. So, you know, I will share with you all. I talked about being in the thick of it, and you know, we have had some ups and downs. I will say that, with some emotional roller coaster moments with my older daughter over the last couple of years, where I know she has not achieved, her fullest potential as a young lady, as a student, as a daughter. She just has, had some, moments that are challenging, as is going to happen with kids. Although these might have been a little bit amplified at times. And, we have been working really, really hard on loving her through it, helping her through it, and just trying to get her to where we know it is that she can actually be. And, the end of grade, believe whatever you want to say about standardized testing. I mean, it is what it is. And, the school year just wrapped up, and she did exceptionally well on her end of grade test. She, like a superior score.
Wow.
And I mean, which was honestly, it was surprising to us. I think even surprising to her, but it was sort of a full circle. Like, this is the culmination of 2 years of challenges, 2 years of work that, we've been putting in, but also that she has had to put in as well.
Exactly.
Right. And to get to, the point where, this is the outcome, I think proved to her that she was capable of the things that we always knew she was capable of if we got things into a place where she could just focus on, being the best version of herself. But, in a selfish sort of way, you feel a little bit validated as well that the work that we've been putting into this is not in vain, and it actually is bearing fruit. So, for me, we had a really, I think poignant conversation where I told her, how proud I was of her. And I see, but more than that, I hope you're proud of yourself, because, you had to do it. We can set a table for you to be successful, but you're ultimately going to be the one that has to really lean into that. And so, and I told her, I'm going to push you. I mean, that's just me. I say, because you've done this, you've shown us and yourself that you can continue to. So let's just let this be like a new beginning of, just walking into, something greater.
I love the reset. That's powerful though. And I'm so glad to hear. And I just want to thank you. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for being vulnerable to say it hasn't been just this super easy path. And then to hear her turnaround. And so, credit to your daughter, credit to you, credit to Monique, for just, continuing to nurture her in love and helping her remember what she's able to do, what she's capable of, and then having that moment with her and telling her how proud you are of her. Because what this to me is a defining moment. As I think about Rain's video. So you guys got to follow his feed. make sure y'all share how you want to be followed in the chat. But I think about that not only the grades, but the conversation, I'm believing is going to be a very defining moment for her, that she will be able to remember for the rest of her life, even though things are difficult, even though things were going left, I have the power to reroute, to redirect, and to reset, and have a positive outcome, a desired outcome. Doesn't matter how rocky it is, because I've been there, done that. And I think that's what challenges in life do for us, right? They show us what we're made of, and they show us what we're capable of. And so the fact that you had that conversation, I'm sure resonated deeply in her and will forever, no matter if she had a whole lot to say about it. I can just tell you as a daughter, those conversations, they stick with you for life. Yeah. Like my father used to get so frustrated and we said he can't. Oh, don't you say you can't around my father. That's not an option. Funny. And then if you do something silly, like you get in trouble, why did you do that? Oh, don't say you don't know.
Right.
You don't know is not an answer. So it's really helped me to just show up, in life with a higher level, I think, of responsibility, of grit, of perseverance, in a lot of different ways. And, you don't always put your finger on it. But I think for me, I realized as a daughter, when I went to college, I would say most of my friends didn't have present fathers. And I realized how blessed and fortunate that I was. And I will say, like, my parents were married until I was about 12, 13, and then they got divorced. And I know for some parents, that's where like the co-parenting becomes more challenging, and one parent maybe become less present. And that can be for fathers or mothers. I've seen it on both sides. So I just am thankful that, my father continued to stay super present for all of us. And even like my brother and I were having a conversation a month or so ago, and we're like, everything wasn't perfect. We had challenges. I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. So if you're an entrepreneur, there can be highs and lows, feast and famine. But it made us all have a strong work ethic. It gave us all a grit factor. It gave us all like this innovative problem solving kind of ability to get out here and, as Rain says, hustle, like make it happen. Like, so you get that. But I also realized that there are, even with the challenges, there are so many people that, haven't had that, you know what I'm saying? And so my father was no joke when I was growing up. He was serious. Like but he always took us to do fun stuff. So I think that's where like my play comes in, which Utopia Living is really about living a life of passion on purpose, holistically, mind, spirit, body. So I grind and I work really late and I work long hours during the week, but then on the weekends, I just have to have something to refuel and replenish me. But I saw that in my household. I saw the work hard, play hard. My mom achieved like all of these record-breaking, career moments in Mary Kay, but we still have cookouts and people over. So those are the things that I think make life really rich, and I think create what we would consider a life of success, is having those meaningful, memorable moments. And I'm glad to hear you fathers talking about that so much.
Right. Could I interject one thing really quickly?
Yeah.
Like when I think about the full recipe of being a father, it's also sort of understanding that they are their own person. And I know we talked about it a little bit early on. And you're just here to sort of mold and shape that into what it's going to be, and not try to make them who you are. Right. I'm a very, Naya knows me well. I'm very driven, ambitious, success, boom, 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 competitive. Like, I want to be the top of the top of the top, which sometimes comes at a cost. But also my kids are not necessarily that. And that's okay. And that has to be okay. And what I've had to learn is how to balance. This is who I am. This is who you are. Now we kind of have to figure out how we're going to work together with each other. We're going to have to manage that. But at the same time, just recognizing, what does success look like to you?
Yeah.
What does good, a successful outcome look like on your terms, which are not necessarily mine? And how can I still, meet you where you are, and we still, cultivate a positive relationship? So it has been humbling for me at times where I'm like, okay, that's where we're at today.
Clarence, can I tell you, when I was younger, you know what my focus was?
What?
Having fun. My focus was, let me do these dishes and vacuum so I can get outside and play with my friends until I'm dragged and forced to come home. I mean, like back in the day, like my sisters and brothers would have to come and find me to leave the house. This is before like cell phones and all of that, because I could just be outside all day long.
Right.
So don't get it twisted. Don't think where they are today is a sum total. All of these principles are going to, and we're already seeing this in your oldest daughter. I could have had straight A's. I never got straight A's. Like, no. So I just want you to know that for how ambitious I am and with all the things I've accomplished, my creativity. And I realize now today, I was just saying to someone, a group of girlfriends, like, when I was younger, I had friends and they had reading, just a reading plan during the summertime. I didn't really have that. And I was like, maybe I wish I should have that. They were like, no, you wouldn't be who you are. Utopia wouldn't exist, because Utopia really comes from a place of creating utopia, everyday moments, life that you love. And what they're saying is wrong with our current generation. and really leading to depression is a lack of play. And play is a form of learning, and it's a form of exploration and creativity. So I just want to say that don't feel like, oh, because they're not valedictorian and in a second grade and all this stuff, because I think that can, if we're not careful, that can come at a cost. So we need to find the harmony and the balance, which is what Utopia living is all about, right? So Rain, I know you want to say something.
Oh no, I was just laughing because I know what's going to happen is Clarence's daughter's going to be like, you know what, Dad, I just want to move out of the country and have some turkeys and chickens.
Go for it.
It's going to bring him right back to where he started.
That's right.
At least you'll be self-sufficient with your food, your food sources.
We might need to be homesteading.
Yes, and Clarence, I'm glad to know you have those skills if we ever need to call on you.
Right.
I gotta like dust them off, but it's still there.
Beautiful. So as we get ready to draw to a close, this has been a rich conversation. You know, as busy fathers, as professionals, as corporate leaders and founders, entrepreneurs, what do you like to do for your self-care? I know it's probably hard to squeeze it in, but what does your self-care look like?
For me, I've always been an athlete, and so that's still a big part of my life. I play in a competitive like men's soccer league, and after we get done today, I'll go throw some frisbee with people and just try to stay moving. So physical fitness and exercise, I think, is important for that. But also, I really try to. I mean, I have therapy sessions. I try to meditate. You know, my practice is not always consistent, but just having some sort of mindfulness practice, I think, is important too. And sometimes, and this is hard for hustler, entrepreneur types, rest for rest's sake.
Oh, yeah.
Because that space is where growth happens, whether you're trying to build muscle, whether you're trying whatever, like, and I'm saying like metaphorical muscle, right? Like growth happens from space. You can think about it like a plant. I know you have a lot of plants, Naya. Like you need space to grow. So it's to grow. So that applies to this as well. And I think that's easy to overlook when you're a very driven, ambitious person, like we all three seem to be. But yeah, I mean, just staying active is very important for me. And then just reminding myself like, hey, just relaxing tonight is also okay.
You know, for me, it's a combination of things. I mean, I'm not a fitness lover, but I do it out of necessity, kind of like paying bills.
That part.
But I do find it therapeutic. So I think sometimes going on a walk or a run is good. Catching up, with friends and family, and just talking about, like, it's not about work, it's not about how the kid. It's just downloading and just catching up, so that my mind sort of has a chance to rest. Watching something completely mindless on TV that is like not probably, enriching me in any way, but it's just, because you're so uber present all the time, being very intentional about what unplugging looks like. So it's just like, look, I'm just recharging right now and just, taking in the moment, for what it is. And just kind of having quiet moments, sometimes early in the morning or late at night. It's like, look, I'm here and I'm just sort of, present, with me. And if that's meditation, if that's reading a book, if that's just, kind of like sitting in solitude, those things are always, therapeutic for me.
Beautiful. So what I hear both of you saying is like a moment for mental margin, and that is so important, like not only for the restoration, but also just for creativity, just for rejuvenation, just some moments to not just be so darn busy. And so, one of the things that we're going to gift both of you, because Clarence, you had a membership, it's probably expired now. So we'll renew yours. We'll gift you one to Rain, to the Utopia Global Wellness Platform. So you can take your meditation, your yoga, your HIIT, whatever you want to do, breathwork classes with us, and make sure that we get in that well-being for you both. As we close out, I want to hear, if you could both share like any words of encouragement for other fathers out there.
That's a good one. Again, we kind of touched on this earlier. It's like, first of all, just showing up is a good portion of it because it's so important, right? The game does not stop there, obviously. So I think it's really striving, you really have to change your perspective where it's not about you and make it about the kids and being there for them in the way they need. Be truly interested in what they care about. Be truly empathetic to what they're going through. Listen to them, right? Model for them. So, I mean, it's just, to me, it comes back to the same thing. Like, just care enough to want to put in the work. I mean, it does change your life. And one of my friends said this, when it was like, you know, get ready to stop caring about anything else, but in the best possible way. Right. And it's just like, so it keeps you really focused. And it's just that, just like care enough, right? Care enough to really want to show up in different ways. That doesn't mean just like working hard, but like care enough to listen, care enough to be curious, right? Just really try to put yourself in their shoes, from the small, like micro, to the big picture macro. Like, what do they need from me? Because it's often, Clarence kind of alluded to this, is often not what you think is best. Right. Sometimes you got to give and take, and sometimes you need to relent and just say, what, this is what they need. And so it's an ebb and flow, and like, it's an ever evolving thing. So I think, to me, if I could bring it to one word, it's like growth, right? We want to see growth. And to do that, you have to be malleable, you have to be flexible, and you have to give space, like I already said. And then, of course, you have to work hard too.
Absolutely.
I would say quickly, being present, really being present. That means putting down the phone, not I'm sort of listening to you, but I'm not. So I'm here, and I want to, really hear what it is that you have to say and have an intentional conversation. I think hang in there. It is a roller coaster. Some days are easier than others. And don't believe some of the myths that have been put out there. We didn't really talk a lot about that, but there's a lot of myths out there about absentee fathers. Sometimes I think are not always accurate. I have a lot of friends that are amazing dads. And I got one or two friends, more than one or two. And those are I don't know any deadbeats. I don't know any guys that are part of my circle that aren't present in their father's lives. So, I mean, we're out here doing our thing. And I want to, applaud all of them, and just give them, a shout out, coming up here on Father's Day for a job well done.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful. And I appreciate you doing that so much. And that was why I wanted to also have this show, is like that we're not only, whenever I'm doing a podcast or a show or a talk, I always do research, right? And one of the things I like to do is listen to different YouTubes and different perspectives. I love conversations. And when I search like the impact of fatherhood on well-being, not almost everything I saw was about the lack of presence, which is why I wanted to really shift the narrative a little bit and have the conversation around the presence of fatherhood. And I also want to just call this out, the presence is so important. And as a woman as well, I learned how I should be treated by watching my father. I think that that's important to say as a woman. I had a pastor in Atlanta, and almost every sermon, no matter what it was about, he always highlighted his role as a husband and a father. And I loved it. You know why? Because kind of similar to Rain's story, his dad was less present, but his dad was an alcoholic. So he didn't have the model to see, but he knew what he wanted to be. But he talked about it, and he talked about the very same thing, that I know that the first example that my daughter will see and learn about how she should be treated, how she should be talked to by a man, is how I treat my wife. And I think that that's powerful. And how my father speaks to me. Like, I never heard my father curse my mom or anything like that. So therefore, that behavior is not suitable, desirable, normative to me. So, and I'm grateful for it, right? It has saved me from being in a lot of probably very toxic, not saying I haven't had some unhealthy relationships, but it has saved me from being in some of those really horrible ones, quite honestly. And so I think that that's important. And then he also would talk a lot about, that's where his son is going to learn how to treat his wife. So I think, just to bring it full circle, we talked about a lot of the ways that fatherhood impacts us, seeing what we want to see, maybe what we don't want to see, and how we're going to shape the narrative to be a healthy one. But I want to just give that charge. So first, I want to say, yes, salute to all of those fathers that are present, because I know so many too. And it's a beautiful thing, and right in my family. And even when my niece graduated just last week, and she has a full scholarship to Bucknell University. And when I went to her celebration party, I said, congratulations to my brother and congratulations to my mother. My brother was like, well, do I get congratulations? I said, yeah, because you raised her. Yeah, so you get credit for this too. These kids are not gonna end up doing all this stuff just on their own. They're just raising themselves in the wolves. Some of them with the wolves, some of them might, because there's always exceptions. But no, I was like, you get credit for this too. So I just wanted to just really call that out and close it out with taking 1 minute for us to take in a nice cleansing breath and have a mindful moment. So I'm going to invite you to lower your gaze, close your eyes. You can place one hand on your heart, one hand on your abdomen, and just take in a nice cleansing breath, celebrating the presence of fatherhood. If you are a father, take this moment to beam with joy and to just take in the presence of gratitude for the gift of fatherhood, and even immerse yourself in your thoughts in one of those proud moments that bring you joy. If you're not a father, I invite you to think about a proud fatherhood moment, whether it's with your biological father or a mentor or father figure. Taking in another cleansing breath of gratitude, of reflection, and the gift of fatherhood. And as we close out, I just want to share this quote. Real fatherhood means love, commitment, sacrifice, and choosing, along with the willingness to share responsibility. Thank you so much, Rain and Clarence, for joining us. Rain, happy birthday. Turn up, and make it a Utopia Living Day off. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.